Creating a local report is similar to adding just about any other new item to a Visual Studio project, using the Add New Item dialog box, and is similar to building a server report using SQL Server data tools. But local reports differ from reporting services server reports in several ways. A few of them include they differ in the extensions. Local reports use .rdlc and server reports use .rdl. The local report designer lacks any tabs. That means it only operates in design view. There's no preview that you can use with these reports. You have to run your application in order to see the report. So it's a little bit clunky to debug reports. Then, unlike a server report, the data for a local report lives outside of the report file. The definition isn't included within the file. And it's located elsewhere in the project inside of a typed data set. This data set is based on ADO.NET, which differs from a reporting services data set, two entirely different things. Also, the local report requires a report viewer control in order to render it. And finally, a local report functions independently of SQL Server reporting services and doesn't require access to a reporting services instance. It's just an alternative way of creating reports within your application. Now, to populate a local report with data, you need to use the Report Data window to add a new data source and link it to the report file. So let's take a look at how you can do that. Now, it's important to understand that with local reports, before you can use the report viewer control to host that local report, you have to create the local report. Then you can add the report to the report viewer control in order to display it to the user. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a local report and a web page to render the local report in a report viewer control, the web version of the control. The query is going to return a list of all products from the AdventureWorks LT database. So here I have Visual Studio open. This is a project I've already created and added a couple pages to, Report Server Viewer. It's a web forms application. So I'm just going to use this. There's no dependency upon any other pages that I've created within this project so far. All right, so I'm going to go over here into Solution Explorer, right-click on the project name, select Add, and Add and New Item, and that opens up the Add New Item dialog box. So I'm going to create a Visual C# project. So it lists the objects that are available for C#. Pretty much everything you see here is available in Visual Basic projects as well. So you're good there. And then I'm going to select the reporting node. And I want to select this report item. I'm going to name it Products. Okay. Now, I also want to point out that there's a report wizard object here. So this lets you create a new report using a wizard. It'll step you through the process, much like the wizard in SQL Server data tools for reporting services projects. It gives you a functional report, but it doesn't expose all of the potential features. So use the wizard, but we're going to run with scissors here and just create an empty report and build it from there. All right, still call it Products, and add that to the project. And that opens it up within the designer here. So as I mentioned earlier, notice that there is no separate tab for design and preview. So I can only design it. I can't preview it directly here. I have to run it within the project in order to see the report. All right, here's the report data window. So that's very important. So the first thing I'm going to do is select new data set, because I need to tell the report where to get the data. Now notice that I already have an AdventureWorks LT 2012 connection, so I don't need to create one. But if I needed to create one, I could just click on New Connection, and it's the usual dialog box for creating a connection string to a SQL Server database. Okay, but I'm going to select that. If I want to look at the connection string, I can take a look at it. Okay, fine, that looks great. All right, then I'm prompted about whether or not I want to save the connection string to the application configuration file. I do, so I'm just going to leave that option set. And then it goes out and uses the credentials that I supplied within the connection in order to give me a list of all of the available objects that I can use within this report. In this case, I'm only going to include a single table, and it's the product table, so I'll select that right there. But I can use views, I can use stored procedures, functions, whatever makes sense within the application. And it's going to create the data set. It's going to call it by default AdventureWorks LT 2012 dataset. I'm going to accept that name, but I could also make it more specific to the contents of the data set, like products or something like that. Okay, I'll click on Finish. And now I have a data set that I can use as the source of the report. And notice that it's gone out and listed all of the available fields that I can use within this report. All right, so here I'm going to call this product dataset. And I only have one data set available, so there's no other options there. And I'm good to go. Click on OK. And notice that it's added to the datasets collection here within the report data window. And it lists all of the fields that are available. There's a lot of ways to display data on a report. But in this case, I'm going to go over here to the toolbox and use a table. All right, as you can see, it creates outline of a table, 3 columns, 2 rows. I can include header text and then data rows here, and I can expand those. It's a lot of the same functionality as I have for the report designer within SQL Server Data Tools. I'm just going to add a few fields here. So I'm going to add name to the first column, product number to the next one, color, and then list price. And because I've filled the 3 columns so far, I just need to come over here, hover until I get that blue bar, and then drop the field, and that adds a new column. Again, very much like the report designer in SQL Server Data Tools. Okay, I'm going to select the header row and make that bold. And then the one change of formatting here is I'm going to right-click on list price and select text box properties because I want to change that to display the data as currency. So I'll go ahead and add commas there and use that default format. Okay, I know my names are a little bit long, so I'm going to widen that quite a bit. Product number should be good, color should be good, list price should be good. In fact, I'll go ahead and just widen that to all the available space. All right, so the other columns are probably wide enough, but there's no way to tell until I actually run the report within a page and see. Okay, so that's the report. I'll save my work. And now it's time to create the page that will host the report viewer control. So I'll come over here to Solution Explorer, right-click, add a new web form, and I'll call this Local Report. All right, I'll switch over to Design View. And now the steps for adding a report viewer are pretty much like any other application. Because this is a web application, I first need to add a script manager. So that's now on the page. And then the report viewer itself. But here is where the process varies. If I were using server reports for this application, I would come here to Choose Reports and select Server Report. But notice that because I have a local report that's available within the project, that's included in the drop-down list as well. So that's the report I just created, and that's what I want to use. Now notice that, unlike for server reports, I get some additional items here, but they're not prompting me for a report server because I don't need one because I'm not accessing one. I don't need a report folder because I already know where this report is located within the project. But I could choose different data sources, and I could rebind the data source if it's changed. Or I can even use this link right here to design a new report. So if I add the report viewer to a form, I haven't already created the local report, I can do that now. And I can use all the same processes to create that, and then come back here and use that for this report. Okay, next thing I want to do is enlarge this a little bit. So at this point, there's really no way of telling how big is big enough. I'll just kind of guess about 750 or so pixels and make it about 500 pixels high. Something like that. Oops. Okay, close enough. Okay, I'll save my work. And then another way to view this page is I can just select File and View in the Browser. Whoops, stay on the File menu and View in Browser. And it'll go out, load the page, load the report, load the data, and hopefully render the report if I did everything correctly. And there you have it.